Hello, my name is Jennifer Carey, and today I'm going to be talking about knowing what you're really fighting about. Have you ever had a small disagreement with a significant other that turns into a huge argument? Well, most of these arguments are not about the real issue, but end up being about the underlying emotions. These emotions are able to be expressed in a healthy way if both people know how to do so. Unhealthy conflict is more common than one might think, but it's important to understand that when emotions get out of control during an argument, how differences between two people can influence an argument, and learning some helpful tips for managing productive conflict. Emotions can get very out of control if we're not careful, and this can lead to unproductive conflicts. Where there's just a negative effect on both parties and nothing really gets resolved. When we're angry, we're upset, we're sad, those emotions can enhance the conflict and make it worse than what it really is. Once that feeling of anger and frustration take over, a lot of the times criticism comes out. We start to attack the other person's character instead of seeing that it's your own emotions that need to be talked about, not their character. Oftentimes when the emotions play such a big role, conflicts never get solved and they become what are called serial arguments. So serial arguments are arguments that get brought up time and time again and they never really get resolved. They're usually pretty small arguments, but because emotions take over, they escalate into large disagreements and they just end the same way time and time again. A big thing that we don't realize is that everybody grew up differently, everybody has different personalities, and everybody's different. A person's inherent personality can play a huge role in whether they like to show or avoid emotions. If someone avoids their emotions and doesn't communicate them, it can be difficult for the other party to really understand their point on the issue and to understand where they're coming from and the way that they feel. And growing up in different cultural backgrounds is also a big influential factor in arguments. You know, if you're taught in an individualistic culture, you're more open with your feelings and you like to talk about things. But if you grew up in a more collectivistic culture, you keep things to yourself because that's how you were taught. You were taught you're not allowed to express emotions. And so when two people like that get together, it's usually difficult for anything to be solved and for emotions to be able to be seen by both parties. And it's another factor is also just like men versus women. It's very stereotypical, but it can be true in certain instances. And it's very common for women to like to talk about their relational issues. While men just want to assert their power and be right. Now, while this isn't always true, it definitely can be. This can cause women to withdraw when men start to act that way, and vice versa. Also, if women try to assert their dominance and they just want to be right, they don't want to solve anything, then this can also cause the man to withdraw or the partner to withdraw. But that's not how things should be gone about, and it's definitely a stereotype. But that being said, there are so many ways to have productive conflict. A great way to have it is to recognize the differences between feeling and acting. So it's important to be self-aware and notice that everyone has emotions, but they shouldn't be acted on irrationally. So, when you're feeling angry or frustrated or upset, it's good to voice those emotions, but don't let them take over and don't let them be what you are fighting about. Use the emotions to explain how you feel. So another one is accepting responsibility for your emotions when you feel them. You should never blame the other person for the way that you feel. And a lot of the time, pointing the finger becomes a very big issue with conflict because you want it to be their fault that you feel that way. But maybe it's not. Maybe you are over emotional, and it's just better to voice that rather than to blame the other person. And the most important point is to just practice active listening. So make sure you repeat what your partner is saying back to them to let them know that you hear them. And also just make sure they know you're listening to them, because that is a very big discrepancy when it comes to arguments. People just don't listen, or the other person thinks that they're not listening. So practicing active listening is very important. And just remember that arguments are inevitable. They can be healthy if they happen in a productive way, and it can bring couples closer together, because you will solve all your differences if you have productive conflict. Just remember that they do not have to be destructive, and it's perfectly normal. And it's okay to feel emotions, but just don't allow them to overtake you. Make sure you're voicing those emotions, and make sure you're listening to the other person. Thank you.